As kind of a lead-in to Coach Marshall, I don't know how many of you got to see this, but during Wichita State's run to the Final Four 2 years ago, CBS was very deeply involved with all of the Final Four teams, following them through the process leading up to Atlanta. And to lead you into Coach Marshall, we have the Wichita State portion of that very special presentation by CBS. So enjoy once again.
It all comes down to this.
The journey to the Final Four is like no other in sports. 10 furious days of competition where hopes are crushed and dreams are realized.
Are you kidding me? Unbelievable comeback.
A gauntlet that carves a hungry field of 68 teams down to just 4.
Louisville heads to Atlanta.
This is the story of those 4 programs, their struggles and triumphs told from the inside through unprecedented access.
You'll never get this in the NBA.
Join us as we go behind the scenes at Michigan.
They think you're just a fluke.
Syracuse, Wichita State.
We belong because of the way we played.
And Louisville, as they strive to shine on the game's largest stage.
They'll be telling that story forever.
This is the NCAA tournament like you've never seen it before. This is Final Four Confidential.
The official Final Four program right here.
Hey, let's have a good one, all right?
Yeah, let's get going. Let's go.
On the Georgia Dome floor, each team holds a practice in front of media and fans, a Final Four tradition. In 2012, Gregg Marshall's Shockers lost quietly to VCU in the round of 64. This year, the word is out on the coach and his program.
Could you just tell us how much you knew about Wichita State before you went to school there?
I knew nothing about Wichita State. I had to Google it and see how big the city was. When I first heard the word Wichita, I'm thinking a small country town, people walking around with cowboy boots on. And
The biggest thing, I think, is keeping them focused, keeping them grounded, but from my perspective at Wichita State as a 9 seed and a non-BCS school, keeping them confident, making sure that they understand that they belong here, making sure that they understand that if they play well, we can win this whole thing. And they don't have to play the perfect game. They just have to play really, really well.
I know the Final Four in March Madness has grown and grown into this fantastic experience. But for Wichita, basketball was so important in 1965, just like it is today. Nothing's changed. Go Shockers!
Shocker fans still love the Jew. We remember you and everything you've done for our program. Thank you so much for coming out and being a part of this. Thank you so much.
To be appreciated after all these years has been something very, very special for me and something that I will remember for the rest of my life.
This is what you work for. We're at the mecca of college basketball, Atlanta, 4 teams standing, and we have an opportunity to play one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country today, for the right to play for a national championship. So what's not to like?
I especially love the vibe on Saturday before the first game because the building is usually divided 4 different ways. Every single fan base believes it's their year. It's magic in the air. If you could ever quantify what hope feels like, that would be probably the setting that I would choose, would be that last hour before the Final Four.
And fellas, let's see what it looks like early here. Wichita State on the floor with Louisville. People have been trying to speculate all week long what that would be like for the Shockers.
The anticipation, the excitement boiling over, and the questions get answered right now.
Experience on the floor and off the bench favors Louisville, but the Shockers let it be known that they've come to play. Paced by junior forward Cleanthony Early, Wichita State takes an early 8-0 lead.
And here's another 3-point shot, and Early hits another one. Baker, he's a good shooter. From the corner, he knocks down the three, and Louisville now has its biggest deficit of the entire tournament.
Down 4 with just over 5 minutes remaining in the half, Louisville's leading scorer, Russ Smith, hits 3 threes to keep the Cardinals within reach.
Siva to Smith, wide open, and he's hit his last 3. Russ Smith now starting to get going.
But despite Smith's 3-point barrage, Wichita State takes a 1-point lead into the locker room.
We haven't even played our best. We haven't played well. We played pretty good, but we haven't played well yet. If we play well, really well, for the next 20 minutes, we're going to play on Monday night for a championship. Let's go, baby!
In the second half, using a mix of experience and youth, Wichita State seizes control of the tempo and the scoreboard.
Smith, his pass right into the arms of Early, who snaps it overhead. Now to Cotton, and the Shockers are stunning everyone here in Atlanta.
Nearly 6 minutes into the second half, the Wichita State lead grows to 12 and forces the Cardinals to regroup.
Hancock outside Henderson, and the walk-on has hit a 3. Tim Henderson from right there in Louisville.
Though he's scored just 13 total points the entire regular season, junior Tim Henderson jolts the Cardinals to life with 2 3-pointers in 42 seconds.
Can he do it twice? How about this? Wow, what an X-Factor.
Still down by 6, team captain Luke Hancock responds. With 6.5 minutes remaining, his 3rd basket of the half gives Louisville the lead.
Here's the mismatch. Bohannon with Van Vliet for the lead, and Hancock delivers.
Trailing 67-62 with less than a minute to play, Early stares directly into the face of Louisville's relentless defense, refusing to concede.
Puts it off the glass, too strong. Early up there in the air, and taps it home. This kid is something else.
After a ferocious 39 minutes and 52 seconds, only 3 points separate what should happen from can you imagine.
And Kevin Ware just is unable to look at this right now.
Hancock, who has scored 13 in the second half, needs just one more to secure a win many considered a foregone conclusion 2 hours before.
And it's long. And the Shockers will tie up. The arrow's going Louisville's way.
Wow, that was a little quick call. Yeah, it was. That call is going to stick with Gregg Marshall for a long time.
For the longest time, I thought we were going to pull it out against a great team who obviously is well coached, and we came up one play short. They'll be telling that story forever.
What an honor to be here, guys. Thank you very much for having us all here. The Final Four from '65, the Final Four from 2013. What a, Tommy put it best, what a great reflection that we all have given one another and the university. When we're successful, it really looks good on all of us. Mr. Powers asked me to speak for an hour. I'm not going to put anyone through that. But you did have your chance to leave in the break, okay? So you're stuck with me. And I didn't time this speech. I had some other things to do. So when I wrote this out in the last couple of days, I did not time it. So I apologize. We're going to try to have some fun. The Atlanta Pep Rally in 2013 that Koch Industries put on for the Shockers is the closest thing that I can think of for what we're doing right now tonight. Many of you were probably there because this is the epitome of Shocker Nation. Thanks for being here. to celebrate these gentlemen that did so much for our university and our program and built this program in the early 60s, and in particular 1964 and 65. Bear with me. I asked them 3 times to make sure. They said, we want to talk about the theme tonight is from whence we came. So here you go. My dad was a generous 5'7". He was a sprinter on the track team at Presbyterian College. My mom was a 5'5", 1/4 Cherokee Indian that was raised in a children's home in Greenwood, South Carolina. She was adopted at age 11. But she told my grandparents that she would not go to live with them unless they took her 2 younger siblings, both sisters, one age 9 and one age 7. So they found homes for both of those young girls in the same little community of Simpsonville, South Carolina. That's courage. She tells me she played basketball, but back then it was 3-on-3. And if any of you have seen my teams play, you can imagine my mom played on the defensive end. I became a 6'3", 145-pound point guard at Cave Spring High School in Roanoke, Virginia in 1981. I held the scoring mark until J.J. Reddick attended the same high school a couple of decades later. And he broke my scoring record, and then he became a sophomore. I was 6'3", 145 pounds, and I'm still 6'2½", about 220. So imagine that. If I turned sideways, you couldn't see me. But as a junior, Hal Nunnally from Randolph-Macon College attended a game to watch the 6'7" center on our team. He left recruiting me. And he came back as a senior, and the second time he came back, we had developed a relationship, which was very good, because I think I scored 4 points before getting my teeth knocked out in the 4th quarter. And Coach Nunnally went to the dentist office on a Friday night about 9 o'clock. And as you can imagine, I didn't know much about alcohol at the time, but I knew my dentist had been involved in some. I enrolled at Randolph-Macon, and Coach Nunnally chuckled on my first day on campus. And he said, son, why did you put 6'3", 145 pounds on the recruiting questionnaire? No one would ever do that. I would think you would be an escapee from Auschwitz. Which I didn't have much of a response. We played in 3 NCAA tournaments in my 4 years for Randolph-Macon. My high point per game average as a senior was 7 points per game, but I started about 60% of the time through 4 years. We were a Division II team, and all I can remember is every single night I guarded the best player, Tekel. I received 2 broken noses during that time. We finished 4th in the country in 1984, and we developed a bond of brothers. Then Coach Nunnally re-recruited me in my senior year and told me that he thought that I had a mind for college coaching. I had been the host for most of the young recruits that had come to visit Randolph-Macon. I got the $20 and was told to give them a good time and, accentuate the positive and kind of not talk about the negatives of our program. And I guess I did a pretty good job because I got some really good teammates. So he convinced me to take the job for $10,000 a year. Most of my fellow graduates that year in 1985 were going to work for their dads in their own companies or going to Wall Street and make their fortunes. And there I was. I was struck tonight by how many gentlemen on this stage went into coaching and education. It was amazing. After 2 years and a combined $20,000, I received my master's degree, and I said, 6 years at Randolph-Macon is enough. I'm gonna set out and make a path in this world. So I took my internship to Amelia Island Plantation just outside of Jacksonville, Florida. Beautiful resort. I was basically the cabana boy. I got drinks and towels for the rich and famous. You've been there, Manny. You know what it's like. I did scavenger hunts. We took all these executives that had earned the right to visit this beautiful playground on safaris. And the last act that I remember as an intern at Amelia Island Plantation was having to dress up in a gorilla suit and escort the lady that had put on this safari for 500 of the top executives from Procter & Gamble. And I whisked in, picked her up. She had no idea what was going on. And I guess I was the only guy big enough and strong enough to carry her out as she was screaming to the top of her lungs. I called Coach Nunnally and I begged him to get me back into coaching. So he got me back into coaching, but at a pay cut. This time I got $9,000 to coach at Belmont Abbey College. I was also the sports information director, and I got an additional $1,000 that July when I painted the pool. I got my break in coaching the very next year, going Division I. And when I say going Division I, that's very generous. The College of Charleston in 1988-89, our first year, was embarking on an 8-year wait before we got an automatic bid chance to go to the NCAA tournament. But I was fortunate enough in those 8 years to work for a wonderful coach, John Kress, who became one of the most successful coaches ever to take a team from NAIA to Division I. In '94, we were 24-3 and got an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, we led Wake Forest for 37 minutes with a freshman by the name of Tim Duncan, and they hit 3 threes down the stretch to beat us in a heartbreak. But John Kress taught me how to be a coach from A to Z, and I've learned some of the lessons that he taught me. He retired not too long ago, but he was my Coach K. In the spring of '96, my lovely wife, Lynn, who was the major breadwinner in our family, as the parking administrator in the city of Charleston, she was knocking down $31,000 a year. She informed me that even though we had bought a nice, beautiful new home, that she was pregnant, and when the baby came, she was no longer going to work. I then started having cold chills at night thinking, how are we going to pay this house payment? And ended up going to Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia for $45,000. Go Herd. Okay. Fast forward 2 years. I'd never called a timeout. I have since learned, and many of you have learned, even though I thought, gosh, I've got to support my family, I've got to get a real job, and otherwise we're going to be on the streets and not able to eat. And I said, no, I've got to call a timeout. Lynn, I want to just call a timeout. And if you've watched our teams play over the last 8 years, you've realized now that I don't really like timeouts. I think they're overrated and a sign of weakness. But I got a phone call in 1998 to go be the head coach at Winthrop University, a small school in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Rock Hill, South Carolina is an old mill town, and in the past, in the previous 6 years, the program there had won 51 games total. They were 7-21 when they fired a gentleman that I knew well, and they had lost to a Division III school at home on their home court. So I get the phone call, and I said, Lynn, they just offered me this job. And she goes, why would you ever take that job? No one can win there. I said, I have one answer to that. When is the last time anyone called our home phone, back when you had home phones, and said, we would like for you to be our Division I head coach? And she goes, I don't think that's ever happened. I said, and I don't think it'll ever happen again if we don't take this one. So I took a job that I refer to now as a no C's job, as in ABC, no C's job. And what I mean by that is there were no courtesy cars, there were no cell phones, there was no camp, there was no clinic, there was no computer on my desk, there was no cash. They offered me $60,000 total per year to be the coach. We had a $94,000 total operating budget when we started. There was no crowd at the games, and most importantly, there was no center on the team. But we did have some decent talent. Unfortunately, they had never been pushed. They had never been pushed, and we pushed them. Much like my former assistant, who's now at Bowling Green University. I look at what he's doing today and see the parallel. He had some talent when he took over Chris Jans at Bowling Green this year, and now they're like 15-5, and they're in first place in the Mid-American Conference and doing a great job. And that's what we did at Winthrop. We went from worst to first, much like my favorite baseball team, the Boston Red Sox. The problem was no one cared. There was apathy that ran through the community. The very first game that I coached, they said the attendance was 500 people. Now, this is a beautiful arena that holds 6,100. I have no idea why they built it, but there were 500 people at the basketball game. You could hear everything that came out of anyone's mouth, especially mine, and you could hear every sneaker squeak. In order to keep my job, I thought it was important that we get some noise in the building, as you can imagine. Lynn, my assistant coaches, and myself went around town and literally gave out little tickets, admit one type of tickets off a roll, and said, if you come to the first basketball game, it's on us. If you want to come back, then buy a ticket. But we're gonna pay for you to come. Just give it a shot. And we did that for 2 or 3 years. Ultimately, we won the first NCAA tournament bid in the school's history. And in the subsequent 9 years, we won 7 championships and got to 7 NCAA tournaments. In 2006, as fate would have it, we were placed in the regional in Greensboro, North Carolina. And there was a team, we were playing the second game. And the first game was Seton Hall versus Wichita State. So we're a 15 seed at Winthrop. We're playing the 2 seed, Tennessee, in the second game. Well, I know that we're going to beat Tennessee, so I'm scouting this game very closely. I'm scouting Wichita State versus Seton Hall. And I'm watching the game. Even though Seton Hall is a higher seed, I'm going, oh boy, I hope Seton Hall wins, because when we win, I would rather play Seton Hall than Wichita State. They're going to be easier for us. And then I watch the 500 to 1,000 people that had made the trip to Greensboro, North Carolina for a first-round NCAA tournament game, and how passionate they were, and the beautiful colors of black and yellow. And I'm going, Man, those people are intense. I really like their crowd. I like their cheers. I like the passion and energy with which they play. Little did I know that once they beat Seton Hall, they're now watching us play Tennessee. We lost on a buzzer beater. Chris Lofton took about 3 steps and hoisted in a three-pointer. And I felt like a sniper had gotten me from the top of that Greensboro Coliseum. But we didn't get the chance to play Wichita State. But I talked to Mark Turgeon the next morning because I wanted them to win. And Mark and I had been friends from our days, in our young days as assistant coaches. And I just gave him one little thing that I thought might help him versus Tennessee's press. They had a tendency to press every possession. And I think he used it. I don't know. He might have had 2 days to prepare. I think he used it. But I was so glad to see Wichita State advance. And I watched their game in the Sweet 16. Little did I know, a year later, after we had played in our 7th NCAA tournament, that year we were finally a decent seed. The best we had ever gotten was a 14. In 2007, we get an 11 seed. Now, in order to do that, we had to go undefeated in our league, go 27-3, and win 3 games where we got checks on another team's court. But we got that 11 seed, and we played Notre Dame, and we built a 20-point lead with about 10 minutes to go in the game. And I'm thinking, wow, finally going to win a game in the NCAA tournament. You're 0-6 to this point. And, well, we had not worked on presses the entire week because all of the video that we saw, Notre Dame never pressed. But what do you do, Lanny, when you're down 20 in the NCAA tournament? You press. So they press. We turn it over once or twice. Our point guard went to the line, missed back-to-back front ends of a 1-and-1, and all of a sudden a 20-point lead is a 10-point lead with about 8 to go, and now it's back to being a ball game. They eventually take the lead with a Luke Herringody jump hook from the right baseline with 1 minute and 54 seconds to go. Our 20-point lead is now a 2-point deficit, and the thought crossed my mind, you're about to move to 0-7 and blow a 20-point lead all in one fell swoop, and you will definitely be the worst coach in the history of the Division I NCAA tournament. My players respond. We go on a 14-2 run and end up winning the game by 10 in less than 2 minutes. Beautiful execution. They just played great. So then we get the opportunity to play Oregon. We lose the next game. But it's the first time a team from the Big South Conference had ever won a game to this day in the NCAA tournament. So I'm playing golf with a couple of my buddies and my wife. 2 of the foursome are here tonight, which is very ironic, my wife and one of my buddies. And I get a phone call from Doug Elgin from the Missouri Valley Conference. And Doug goes, man, I've been watching your teams for years, been trying to get you to take jobs in our league. You've got to listen to me. The best job in the Missouri Valley Conference, the best leadership, the best president, the best AD, the best facilities. What would it take for you to come to Wichita State? And I said, Doug, hold on one second. I'm teeing off on number 6. I said, I'm not going to tell you what it would take, but I am going to tell you that it was $750,000 that I just turned down to be the head coach at the University of South Florida, a bad job in the Big East, right? Okay. You live in Florida, you know. He goes, oh, gosh, Greg, that's a lot of money. It happened to be the same amount that Mark Turgeon was making at Wichita State. I had no idea. But he says, you know, I don't know if they're going to call you or not, but if they do, good luck to you. We'd love to have you. 30 minutes later, now I'm on putting on number 8. The phone rings, and it's Jim Schaus. Please come be the coach. I need you within 48 hours. Nothing small will stand in our way. We need you as our coach. I did not understand the urgency, but it took me 72 hours to get my wife, my 2 children, and my mother-in-law on the private plane that they sent to Rock Hill, South Carolina. Up to that point, I'd lived in that community for 9 years and had no idea we had an airport. So on Friday, the 13th of April, 2007, we land in Wichita, and it's a night that's not like tonight. It's cold and it's raining. And then the rain becomes sleet. And then the sleet becomes snow. It's April the 13th, and Jim has kept us, under a cloak, and we've got dark curtains in the rig that he's driving us around in, and no one's to see us, and it's very secretive. And so we're at Teradyne Country Club, and on the east side we're having dinner, and we had stopped earlier in the afternoon to get stocking caps for my young children. Kellen was 10, Maggie was 7, and we weren't packed for a winter blizzard. We're having dinner, and I remember saying, Jim, is it snowing outside on April the 13th, Friday? And he looked out and his jaw dropped. And my children, who didn't really see a lot of snow in South Carolina, they go, it's snowing, and ran outside. And Jim looked at me and he goes, yes, it is. So he offered me the job, and I talked it over with my family, and I said, look, I can't take this job on Friday the 13th, but I will take it on Saturday the 14th. I didn't understand his urgency at the time, but once we got out of all the paperwork squared away, I did find out that we had 7 scholarships to give in mid-April. We only have 13 now. Okay, the girls have 15, we have 13, and I had 7 scholarships to give, more than 50% of my team. But I took the job for 4 reasons. Number 1, the leadership was excellent, Jim Schaus and Dr. Beggs. The facilities were top-notch. The roundhouse had been renovated. It was now Coke Arena, and it was one of the finest in the country. The support was incredible, both physical, meaning fannies in the seats, like tomorrow when you're at the game. Every seat will be full, and physical, meaning the support to do things in a first-class way. And finally, the tradition, was so important because I had been at a place that had none. I understand what that meant. But I listened to Coach Thompson's advice. He said, don't spoil them that first year. I went to a Final Four that first year. So I went 11-20 and said, let's make them hungry. It was quite a blessing coming to Wichita. With 5 more wins, we will have 6 straight seasons with 25 or more victories. Thank you, Mr. Dahl, for your reminding us which Syracuse and Louisville and Michigan are doing today in the very beginning of your speech, because 20-3 ain't quite that bad right now, is it? Okay? The NIT championship in 11. I remember walking into Madison Square Garden as a young kid from South Carolina. First time I've ever been to the mecca of college basketball, the grandest arena on the face of the earth. And I intentionally got lost while my team was stretching. And I go back in a hallway, and I see 2 championship pictures of the New York Knickerbockers, right beside Dionne Warwick and Billy Joel and Elton John and the Beatles. And I'm just going down memory lane, and I get to these pictures of the championship team. And back then, they took championship pictures right after practice, when the guys were sweaty in uniforms. And I remember reading the names, and there was 12 guys, and there was 1 coach, Red Holtzman, and there was no trainers and student managers and no practice squad or anything like that. And it said Dave Stallworth, Wichita State University, and Nate Bowman, Wichita State University. And I said, Shockers have great karma in Madison Square Garden. And we went on to win that thing convincingly, Dave. So now I'm blessed to be able to coach young men of character, young men that are coachable, young men that have already gotten over themselves and care about one thing, winning. I was just paid a tremendous compliment. Actually, my players were paid a tremendous compliment by Miss Dee Heller, widow of Coach Heller. She came up to me and she goes, Coach, I'm a season ticket holder. I love your team. I love your players, the way they play. I love the way they care for one another. It reminds me of this team tonight. Thank you, Miss Heller. It means a lot. Humble, hungry, but you played with swagger. I didn't watch you play, but I know you played with swagger. Malcolm Armstead, my point guard, going into the Gonzaga game, they were the #1 team in the country. They were the #1 seed in the tournament. I said, you know, Malcolm, he's from Alabama. I said, if we get a chance to beat Gonzaga, we get to go to Los Angeles and be in the Sweet 16. And he goes, Coach, man, I ain't worried about Los Angeles. I'm trying to get back to Atlanta for the Final Four. I said, okay. I'm with you, Mal. Then I called him his nickname, Money Mal. Let's go. We're down. We were down 7 points at the under 8-minute timeout against Gonzaga. We'd had the lead most of the game. Of course, we're in foul trouble. Clee Anthony's early's in foul trouble. Carl Hall is in foul trouble. So we talk in the under 8-minute timeout against Gonzaga, 1 through 5, and I said, would you have taken on October 15th, the first day of practice, would you have taken down 7 with 7:42 in the game against the #1 team in the country and the #1 seed in the tournament for the right to go to the Sweet 16? Had I offered it to you? And I looked everyone in the eye, and they were each affirmative. Absolutely, Coach, we would have taken that. And then Ron Baker did something that I never will forget. He gave me the most surreal look. And it was like, okay, you're a freshman, but he basically said to me with his look, Coach, I got this. And the next time he touched the ball, it wasn't in his hands a split second out of the right corner, and bam, all of a sudden it was a 4-point deficit. And we went from down 7 to up 4 while letting Gonzaga score more than I'm accustomed to and more than I like. We scored 23 points in the subsequent 9 possessions without a technical foul shot. You do the math. It was pretty impressive offensive display. And Bake hit 2, and Clee Anthony hit 1, and Carl Hall hit a jumper, and then we got a traditional and 1. And the last one was a precocious freshman by the name of Fred Van Vliet. And he bobbled the ball and mishandled it a little bit, and all of a sudden I think it's going to be a turnover because it's rolling over towards me where I'm standing, and he grabs it about 27 feet from the basket, and he measures Mr. John Stockton's kid, whatever his first name is, and he says, whap. And he holds his follow-through the entire flight, and the ball had to be in the air about 2 or 3 seconds. And as it swishes through the net, he turns and winks at me. And then we go to Los Angeles, and another young player, a sophomore by the name of Takel Cotton, gets a huge 3 on the left. Again, we were a 20-point advantage, and they cut it to about 3 or 4. And Takel makes a huge 3 on the left wing, and then on the very last and most important possession of the game, gets a big-time offensive rebound. He soars up like Warren Armstrong Jabali and grabs it, and we milk some more clock, and eventually up 2 or 3 with about 20 seconds to go. Fred Van Vliet, once again, a freshman's got the ball in his hands. He dribbles in, he takes a floater, It literally bounces on the rim once, twice, 3 times before dropping in. And the game's over. And so these guys make these plays because of the swagger, because of the confidence, because of the tradition, because they're expected to win because of what you guys did. It wasn't the first time Wichita State's been to the Final Four. It was the most recent time Wichita State's been to the Final Four. So I invite you back to 2063. That's when we'll have our next 50th anniversary. Okay? You guys built it. I hope someone takes the reins like Bob took the reins this time, and I hope someone gets on the phone to Larry and makes sure everybody is here. But right now, these players and myself, we're the stewards of the program that you built. And I know that if I'm fortunate enough to be here, because there were no coaches here tonight, in 2063, that I won't know where the hell I am. So I'm going to party this weekend like this is my 50th anniversary. I'm honored to be here. I'm thankful to be here. And I just want to say congratulations. You guys have meant so much to us, and we hope to continue to reflect positively back on everyone in this building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
That was excellent. That was excellent. Thank you.
We have asked one person to speak on behalf of the team, just say a few words about that special season and the special bond that these guys have, and we thought the appropriate one would be the team captain, Dave Leach. Dave?
Thanks, Mike. Well, it's a real honor for us as a team to be here and to see the great support that the Shockers still get in this fine city. We appreciated all your support over the years when we were playing. It's great fun to watch the games from Oregon now on TV, and as all the other guys have said basically the same thing, and see all you people going crazy for the Shockers. It's we were thrilled when the guys a couple of years ago made the Final Four. Now we have someone to celebrate with in the future. Coach Marshall, as you all know from watching, has done a fantastic job, and his guys are to be congratulated for their great effort night in and night out. One of the great things about the group that I had the privilege of playing with was that exact thing. We liked each other a lot. Dave Stallworth was a great example of a guy, although he was so much better than the rest of us that it wasn't even funny. But one of Dave's great characteristics was that he shared the ball. If somebody else was open, had a better shot, they got the ball. If somebody needed a little help on defense, Dave was always there to help out. So he was just a great example while he played with us. And then Muhammad took up that role. And as I told him this afternoon, I wondered if they still had saddle sores from all of the rest of us riding them so hard for all those years. But it's a great privilege to be here. We thank you all for your support back then. We really appreciate and relish the support that you show for this team now. And we're with you. Go Shockers.
Thank you, Dave.